Hi, I'm Erin Power.
And I'm Laura Rupsis.
We're certified health coaches, and this is Health Coach Radio.
This podcast is about the art, science, and business of health coaching.
We share our insider tips to help you become a better coach and entrepreneur.
And we interview expert guests to discover how they've made it in this growing field.
It's time for health coaches to make an impact.
It's time for Health Coach Radio.
Our guest today is Dr. Jane Tornatore, a licensed therapist and author of the book, Everything is Perfect, Just Not Me. This was a really fun interview where we got to explore concepts around mental health and neuroplasticity and how we can deprogram and remap our minds to enable us to engage with the world differently, see ourselves differently, and so much more. Jane's found in her counseling practice that people really struggle with self-worth when it comes to making changes. Her purpose in writing her book was to help us move through the fear that naturally comes when we try to love ourselves more. You graduate from the book with the tools to make the changes you've always wanted to make for years, but perhaps you didn't feel you deserved. In the book, she unpacks the idea of self-acceptance and being kind to ourselves, and how scary it can be. She suggests tiny changes to make the journey to self-acceptance less frightening by taking small steps instead of giant leaps of change all at once, with the ultimate destination at the end of those tiny steps being improved self-compassion. Jane has an extensive educational and professional background, including a master's degree in human development and family studies at the University of Illinois, and a PhD in family social science and family therapy at the University of Minnesota. In her own words, she says, "While I have a lot of education, I've learned that the most important knowledge comes from within us. My studies in mental health and neuroplasticity give me full confidence that at any age, we can create healthier brains and in the process, happier lives." So if that's not an exciting pep talk, I don't know what is. We'd love to have you screenshot your podcast player and tag us on Instagram at Health Coach Radio. By the way, the show notes for this episode and all previous episodes of Health Coach Radio can always be found at primalhealthcoach.com/radio. Our show is proudly brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute, now an accredited educational provider with the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaches. This means that our graduates can become eligible to sit for the NBHWC credentialing exam to become a board-certified health and wellness coach. Check out primalhealthcoach.com/level2 to learn about our new advanced coaching course taught by me that will nudge you out of your comfort zone and launch you into coaching mastery. My co-host Laura will share a little more about what we teach and how at the end of today's episode, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, let's get on with the show and welcome this fascinating and encouraging discussion with Dr. Jane Tornatore.
All right. Good morning, Jane. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited.
Oh my gosh. We were just talking off camera how excited we were to have this conversation with you because so much of what you talk about is so relevant to our space. But before we dig into that, if you wouldn't mind sharing us a little bit about yourself, 3 to 5 minute backstory on you, kind of where you started and how you got.
So as we were talking before, I became a therapist to help people like love themselves more and really touch into who they are versus what society said they should be, because I was one of those little, I should be this and why am I not this and she can do that. So I was always comparing. I was always putting myself down. And my friends would always say to me, "I wish you could see yourself like we see you." And I'm like, I wish I could too, but I didn't believe what they saw. I thought they were seeing what wasn't me. I didn't know. I just thought they were seeing not me. They were seeing me more than I was. So at one point, I thought, this is ridiculous, right? And I wrote a article for Thrive Global, Ariana Huffington's new thing. And I wrote about the actual path, the moment I decided I am done using other people to determine my value, was when a boyfriend had left me and I was thinking about killing myself. Because I had learned, nobody ever said this to me, but I had learned if a man loves you, you are valuable.
Wow.
Yeah, right. And so I thought we were going to get married. I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life, have kids, all that. And he was gone. And I'm like, wow, I must be worthless. And so I was reading this, I think it was Harville Hendrix, You Can Have It All. It was some early self-help book. And I read the sentence, the other person hurt you once. You hurt yourself 1,000 times every time you think it. And I'm like, oh my, I didn't talk to this guy in months. And every day I'm like, why did he do that? Why? And he left me for another woman who left him twice before. So he's like, I'm like, really? You chose her over, I must really be, right? So I was like, I am done with this belief. It is clearly not serving me and it's crazy. So at that moment, I'm like, I am going to figure out how to find my own worth, how to find my own value. And it's lovely when it's reflected by others, but my own can never be taken away. Mm-hmm. People can like me or not, but my own can never be taken away if I don't want it to. And I can't receive others until I receive myself. Like my friends were like awesome people, but I never believed them. Now I'm like, I believe you. I'm like, thanks for telling me that like 30 years ago. So that's what came out in answer to that question.
Wow. What, there's a lot to talk about here, but I'm really, so as a therapist who specializes in self-love, like, overcoming this not enoughness. Here's a loaded question. Where the heck does that come from?
Right. That's a great question. One of the great things about being in therapy now is we have the tools to look at the brain, to see what's actually happening, to see why the stuff we as coaches and therapists do actually works. Before we're just like, it works, just do it. Now we're like, and here's why it works. So one of the things that in the therapy field, most people, I would say, are focused on attachment theory. So we learn basically who we are in the world and how we need to be in the world in order to try to be safe.
You're right.
By the age of 7, our personalities are basically formed. Our habits that we then spend most of the rest of our life trying to stop are basically formed then. Now, can I get brain geeky on you?
Yes.
Okay. So from around the ages of 0 to 2, the brain is in mostly delta waves. This is the brain. These are the waves we're in when we're sleeping. And it's just basically, as little infants, we're just there being, like no volition. We're just responding to our bodies and responding to touch and we just respond, no thought, right? Around the ages of 2 to 6, our brain moves into mostly theta waves, which are the brain waves we're in when we're under hypnosis, right? So when we hear things, we go, okay. Or when we experience, okay. We don't go, wait a minute, I'm not a bad kid just because I'm hungry and it's not dinner time, right? We hear things and we're like, got it. No critical thinking. Right? Mm-hmm. So we absorb all these messages, and often, people don't mean to say you're a bad person, you should really be screwed up for the rest of your life and be very, very scared. Be not who you are. No, unless, that very rarely happens, but we're flawed humans. So we pass our flaws on to our kids, right? So, we learn these things and then it's unconscious. So we're driven unconscious. And, as you work with clients and the coaches you coach, you see them go, oh yeah, awesome. I'm going to do that. I'm totally on that. That's great. That's going to help so much. And then next week you say, how'd it go? And they go, oh, well, I didn't really do it. Right. And that's because they know it's good. They want it, but unconsciously they hear the lesson. It's not going to work, or you're not worth it, or you can't do it, or whatever the message they learned when they were little kids.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So I have twin 6-year-olds.
Oh, awesome.
Okay. They're not identical. It is a lot of work, but now they're 6 and oh my gosh, that age is so fun, although they're still pretty whiny, but for the most part, they're a blast.
Awesome.
And they're not, What's that?
Freaking whiny kids.
I know. And it does drive me insane. It does. But they can do a lot more. They're super active. The stuff that just comes out of their mouths, I laugh like all day long, right? Yeah. But what's interesting, so they're twins, but they're fraternal twins, totally different people.
Mhm.
And Charlie, little Charlie, is my perfectionist.
Oh,
She will constantly ask, like, she gets very agitated when something doesn't feel right, all the way down to how she wears her hair, the clothes she wears,
right.
everything. She wears the same like 5 or 6 outfits every day because that's what she's comfortable in.
Mhm.
Everything has to be just so. Like even when they were really little, she was coloring inside the lines meticulously since she was like 3. Whereas
Wow.
Sam couldn't care less. Half her stuff is mismatched. She will find whatever she wants to wear, doesn't care. She was the one that if we were coloring, she was just like drawing circles everywhere, and she'd be like, close enough. You know, we went to a ceramic place and they made these little rainbow banks. Charlie's little rainbow arches, all like the same color.
Perfect.
Sam's was like brownish because she just sort of smushed all the colors together and didn't care. She thought it was beautiful, right? So I find it fascinating. So these are 2 children, the exact same age, exact same parents,
Right.
but they have like, it's very different. I'm a little concerned about Charlie and this feeling of self-worth and this perpetual, because sometimes I will, and I have to stop myself, get irritated with her if she doesn't have one of these outfits prepared. It's like trying to get her dressed. I might as well be pulling her backwards through a thorn bush, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And I get like irritated with her, but then I hear her say, I don't know what's wrong with me, mommy. And oh my God, does it break my heart? It breaks my heart.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I'm the mom. She's the child. Get your shit together, Laura, and take this on. I put my coaching hat back on. I forgot.
Right.
I'm like, okay, no more mom. I'm putting my coach hat back on. Why those things need to be separate, I don't know. But so this is a really interesting. So the attachment theory and a lot. So something I'm wondering is if there was some experience for my girls that was a little bit different for Charlie than it was for Sammy, or can some of this really just be genetic somehow? Like my husband has suffered from like anxiety his whole life, and since he was a child. So I'm wondering some of, you know, I don't know.
Absolutely.
I'm kind of rambling at this point now, but what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, yes, those are my thoughts. Definitely we come in genetic. There's research showing that people with ADHD, which I have, can be created by increase of stress hormones by the mom when she's pregnant, right?
Okay.
So my little receptors are so ready for stress hormones. Like I joke, I was like, I came out of the womb anxious. I was just like, I can do anxiety super well, which is why I do a lot of self-soothing techniques and teach them because they're awesome. So there's genetics. There's also, I don't know, I think we're just born with our little personalities too. Yeah. We come in as little beings, and our little personality being will interact with the environment in very interesting ways. I was reading a book one time, and a guy was with a woman who was apparently like in finance on Wall Street, and everybody knew she was always the smartest person in the room when she came in. She was just the smartest. And time again, she would sabotage herself right before like a big deal came through, or a big, like she would just, something she would do to sabotage it. And she was like, what's up? Why is this happening? And then as he was working with her, she had this memory of when she was a little kid, and she had a younger sister, and they were eating lunch. And her little sister had finished her lunch, so she got a popsicle. And so she said to her mom, can I have a popsicle? And her mom said, no, you haven't finished lunch yet. When you finish lunch, you can have a popsicle. No problem, right? I mean, nothing, the mom was not, you are a bad kid. No, it's like, when you finish lunch, your sister finished her lunch, so she got the popsicle. She took that in her little, non-totally formed brain, theta wave brain. I'm not good enough to get the prize. I don't deserve the prize, right? Totally innocuous, but her little brain, that's how she took how she should be in the world, and how she is in the world, and how the world is for her. It's like, we never know how we interpret these things. Like, it's not necessarily, there are some people who are malicious, but usually we're bumbling along, doing the best we can. And we make these wacky interpretations. I'm like, I still make wacky interpretations. It's hysterical what I think sometimes. And I fact check and go, oh, I totally made up that story, didn't I? I had a boyfriend once who said, could you check with me next time before you make up the entire story in your head? And I'm like, oh my God, right.
Wow. Well, this is so cool to me. I'm very delighted to have you have explained this in the frame of brainwaves, because A, I love that, so into that. But B,
Yeah,
I have heard of attachment theory. I don't think I knew it had that name, but I'd heard many times from many different people that the stories that you tell yourself are formed by age 7.
Yeah.
And I didn't know the sort of trajectory of that. Yeah, why, right? So I've been regurgitating this to my clients who often, like, I work in the weight loss metabolic health space, so people trying to like get control of eating, or whatever we're going to call it. Lots of air quotes there for anybody listening.
Right, I know.
You could hear them. Get control, whatever. People think they need to be in control. Well, people think they need to be in control of everything. So I've said to my clients, did you know that the stories that you tell about yourself are formed by age 7? And so let's go back into your childhood and think about, but I didn't have this frame of reference. And I had done it with a group of clients I worked with where I said, well, I want you to go back into your memory of the earliest time somebody commented on maybe your food or your body. And let's just start there. And let's just start there. What was the first memory you had? So I did this exercise as well with my clients. And I said, like, my first memory was I was 6 years old, 6 or 7, right around that, that theta wave period of my life where I was walking out to the barn with my bucket of oats to feed the horses. And my mom was at the kitchen sink washing dishes. And she was delighted by how adorable I was. She just thought I was the cutest little farm girl in the whole world, carrying my bucket of oats out. And she opened up the window and she said, "Look at your cute little fat bum." And she said it with absolute just
delight. You're right.
The cutest thing. And it was the first time I remember somebody commenting on, this is so weird. Like, I'm not blaming my mom. Sorry.
Right.
That was the first memory I had of somebody commenting on my body, where it was like, oh, my body is a shape. My body is a certain shape, and my mom is chunky. And so, but anyway, so that you kind of laid it out in this brainwave thing where I was in this sort of hypnotic, non-critical thinking phase of my life. It's like, okay, I've got a little fat bum. Got it. Or whatever.
Yep.
I just think this is so cool. It's so interesting. But the self-sabotage thing, the popsicle example you gave, gosh, I wish I could help my clients unpack that. I mean,
right.
You've gone to school for a long time for this and you've been practicing it as your profession for a long time, but like, maybe this is too much of a question to ask, but as a coach, what questions can we ask our clients to help them unpack maybe the root of their self-sabotage behavior? Because it is so predominant.
It's predominant. Yeah.
God, that's awesome. It's an awesome question. I think, what was it? Was it Einstein who said we can't solve the problem with the same thinking that took us into the problem? Only he said it much more eloquently, because I'm a perfectionist. I would say that, right? But I think and I know you guys have talked about this inner knowing. Right? Coming back to our body. Like, one of the things, every once in a while I am talking to my clients and I say something and I love that I can say this now. I think, oh my God, that was brilliant. Before, I would never have allowed myself to appreciate my own wisdom. But our mind tells us stories. Our body tells us what's true. Right? So I like how memories, and one of the things that also helps memories bring up is when they're having that feeling, or that thought of like, oh, I'm just not good at, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just get my act together? Why can't I just eat like fun? Right? All those awful messages we tell ourselves. Have them feel where they feel it in their body. Because those feelings are tied. There's the theory, neurons that fire together, wire together. So when we're thinking about something, all the previous memories, experiences in our brain that fit with that in some way start to fire too. Like I remember reading a research study in grad school that said when we're depressed, it's easier to think about depressing memories. When we're happy, it's easier to think about happy memories, right? So if they come into their body and feel the feeling of that, like this, feel what that message you're telling yourself sounds like, all those previous times they felt it are now online. And then the thoughts, the memories, the circumstances, the beliefs are more accessible because they've gone through their body and fired it that way. Does that make sense?
It does. It's sort of like the self-fulfilling prophecy. I always talk about it to my clients in that way. It's like, look, you just came to this conversation announcing yourself. Hello, everybody. I'm a self-sabotager.
Right.
That's who I am. That's my identity. Right. And we start like you just keep like carving these grooves, these neural grooves. You keep repeating that's the story. That's your identity.
Yep.
But that like the way it feels in the body is so compelling to us because we did have Dr. Joan Rosenberg on the podcast, and that's kind of her.
Oh, I didn't listen to her. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to go back.
but it was a long time ago, but it was the first time somebody had kind of, at least for me, Laura, like dropped that sort of knowledge bomb. Like, we don't like the way things feel in our bodies. And sometimes we're really, really good at just like pretending we're not noticing or not making a connection. And so, yeah, what you just said is like, as soon as I start talking about myself as a self-saboteur, all of my self-saboteur links come online, and now I'm going to behave in that way.
Yep.
So what you're saying is we connect to how it feels in the body. So what does that feel like? It's disappointment. It feels gross in my stomach, and it makes my head. And then what?
And then just notice the thoughts, right? Because the body and brain are in a constant feedback loop, right? So just have them like be with the feelings. And actually, can I tell you my feelings model?
Yeah.
I love my feelings model. I'm going to tell you the story from my feelings model too, because I love stories, and it also brings it back more home. So I had a friend who was offering a massage package. And so I'm like, for half price, all massages half price. I'm like, awesome. I love massages, but it was one of those things that I didn't allow myself, I had to earn, and that was kind of frivolous. So I could, right? So all these weird messages I learned. So I bought a package of 3. I'm like, great. I helped her. I'm going to get massages and I get to save money. Win, win, win. I got one and it was great. And then summer came and I'm like, I don't want to be inside. I'd rather be outside. So I didn't book it. And the package was 6 months. And so one day I'm in my living room and I'm like, wonder when that package expires. So I text her and she says, oh, it's up next week. And I'm like, crap. Although I did not use that word, right? And then I started pacing, going, what is wrong with me? You shouldn't have gotten the massage package in the first round. Look, you've lost money and you didn't get, what is wrong with you? And then I'm like, well, she should have let me know. She should have let me know it was almost up so I could schedule. And I'm like, no, she didn't do anything wrong. Just stop. Just stop. You're just miserable. Just stop doing this. Do something else. But, well, you should have known. And so I just kept doing this. Don't feel it. And then what is wrong with her or me that caused the problem? And then all of a sudden I was in my kitchen and I went, I'm really angry because I wasted money and I don't want to feel it.
Right.
So I was using my mind or repression to stop what was actually happening. So that's when I thought, oh, that's what most of us do. We either repress or we feed it with our thoughts, the hamster wheel. She should have let me know. I should have known better, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, so what? It don't really matter. I lost the money, right? So I just sat down on my couch and I just literally tapped into my body and felt the anger and when we are with our body, when we're really with it, our like the hamster wheel thoughts seem to slow down. I mean, they slow down when we focus on our body. Our brain thoughts literally slow down. I was just angry. And in about 10 minutes, I'm like, I got up and went, oh, well, literally, I was done, because our feelings are meant to be felt. They're not meant to be stuck or repressed. They're not meant to be fed. They're literally meant to be felt. And then studies have shown that anywhere between 30 seconds and 2 minutes, if we once we have a response to a situation, the body process, the chemicals are done within 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Our body's done, right? We have the feelings, they're out. we are the ones that keep them around by either repressing, and food does a great job at repressing. Food is awesome at repressing our icky feelings, or we feed them. And so we just keep reactivating the chemicals in our body that's responding. So if we have a response more than 2 minutes, we're doing something to keep it around.
You know, so I love what you just said there, how food is great about repressing it.
Oh, yeah.
I come from the fitness world. I find in many ways exercises is a great way to kind of keep
Yes,
feeding, right?
absolutely.
And driving that, like, totally see a parallel there. You're so right. And so to come back to the interview, you really should listen to it with Joan Rosenthal, because her theory, what was it? It was like 90 seconds, right, Erin? Was it 90 seconds? Yeah.
She basically said the same thing that you just kind of said, is like, you sit with the feelings and here's his 90 seconds and it goes away. So just in the same exact sort of time frame that you suggested.
Yep. Now, I want to be very careful for the perfectionists like me out there. I've never gotten faster than 5 minutes. And I've been practicing this for a while, right? We inherently don't want to feel uncomfortable feelings. So nobody does it in, 30, 92 minutes. Just give yourself a break.
Okay, that's good to know.
And also I want to circle around to Charlie, her little perfectionist.
Yeah.
So, the wounded healer we're talking about before we started recording. Our greatest challenge is also our greatest gift. So one of the things about perfectionists is we see what's possible. And because we see what perfection is available, if somehow we were just not human, we could get there, but we see what's possible. So we're always kind of, the shadow side is we're measuring ourselves against what we see. But the gift is, like, she's probably one of those people who can see, wow, we could do this. We could do this. And everybody else is like, no, I don't think so. That'd be different. But no, we could. It's possible. I know it. I have no idea how, but right. So that's the gift of this is, I know you have doubts, and so do I, but this could happen, people. We could do this. So, that's just see if there's some of that in there when you.
I will, and I'll try to encourage that, because, the other thing that's different about that, she can also be very shy. She gets embarrassed to be the center of attention.
Yeah.
Whereas Sam, who isn't a perfectionist and doesn't care, she's a performer. She'll be out and just lay it all out there and just share what she has. She doesn't care what other people think.
God bless her.
I know, right? So, but what's interesting, these two dynamics, is how they can also kind of feed on each other. If, Charlie is working with Sam to get her to kind of pay attention, to kind of get her to, that's not quite right.
Right.
And there's Sam who's trying to just get Charlie to not, don't let it bother you, kind of.
Yeah, just stop caring. Don't care. God, I wish I could.
They kind of balance each other. But I kind of going back to Erin asking, what questions can we ask? I want to throw one out, and I want to get your thoughts on it. Because any health coach is going to hear a client ask you, what's wrong with me?
Yes.
Or I'm a, insert label for yourself, right? And what if my question, so when it comes to any of these questions, whether it's, what's wrong with me? Well, I might be, I like to try to turn this around and just talk about whatever. So maybe it's late night eating. This comes up for me a lot. People that tend to eat late at night or whatever.
Right.
And kind of drilling back into, all right, well, let's unpack that. Let's first, can you tell me how it makes you feel?
Beautiful.
And try to get them to get those emotions out there. That's kind of a tough question, because sometimes they're like, I don't know, I'm just mad. Yeah.
Right. We learned to cut off our head from our body, and there are way more neurons in our body giving us information than our head. Right. So it's, and really it's just practice. I've got clients who I'm like, okay, so what's happening? And they're like, I'm sorry, dead silence on air. Nothing. Right. My mouth is just hanging up. I'm like, nothing. But it's just like, so one of the things I tell them to do is like one of the things I work with my clients is to help them this internal sense of safeness, right? When we need this control, it's usually because we don't feel safe, and we're like, safety out. We try to develop safety, quote, in air quotes, safety outside of us. We manage our environment. We try to manage the people, so we feel okay. So we feel safe. Where back to our inner knowing, when we can be in touch, and it's always there, when we can be in touch with that inner safeness, then the world as it is can be entirely in turmoil. And we're like, wow, this is difficult, but I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm making it. Like everybody listening to this is still alive, even given everything that's going on, right? We're doing okay, right? So one of the things I do is ask them to, okay, so imagine if you felt safeness in your body, imagine where it would be. And then I have them imagine the color it would be. Imagine the temperature. Imagine, is it moving or still? And the funny thing is about imagination, when we imagine, the same neurons are firing as when it's actually happening. Like, do you guys know the lemon experiment?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Let's do it then. Let's do it. Okay. So, and if you're in the audience, please do it too, because it proves that this works. Okay, so I want you to both, and you can have your eyes open or closed. Imagine you're holding a lemon. And then imagine the color and the little dimples and the little, round things on the end. Okay, can you imagine that?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Now imagine you have a knife and you're cutting it in half.
Which direction?
Any direction. Actually,
Okay.
no, cut it and through the fat end.
Okay.
So down the middle. So,
Got
and then exactly. And then you open it up and you might see little spurts and see the little, I'm totally blanking on the name of those little, what are the little
podule things. I don't know what they're called.
What?
The little seeds or the little?
Not the seeds, but the little
Juicy,
the little juicy
nodule things.
Nodule things.
Nobody knows what they're called. So
wow. Fascinating. Anyway, so see them. Can you see them?
Yes.
And now imagine squeezing it a little bit, and can you imagine that the smell of the lemon? You might even feel a little the juice on your face. Okay. Now imagine squeezing the lemon into your mouth. And what's happening in your mouth? What are you feeling in your mouth?
Saliva. Salivating. Yeah.
Saliva. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So your body is responding as if you'd actually put a lemon in. Now, are either of you anywhere near a lemon right now?
No.
No, me either. And even as I'm talking about it, my mouth gets dry. Snacking. I might get a funny face. So when we imagine, it's actually happening in our brain, and our brain can't tell the difference between what's happening and what we're imagining.
This is cool. This is cool. Like we do teach stuff like this in sort of our advanced coaching stuff, but not. This is the part that we don't have in there yet.
Everyone's got all sorts of ideas now.
Yes. Because like, if a client, let's use the late night snacking thing as an example. We'll just keep going with that one. So the client reports in like, I was doing really good. And then I just like sitting in front of the TV and I opened that bag of chips and I ate the whole thing. And then I was in the pantry looking for the cupcakes and I don't know what's wrong with me.
Yeah.
So I'll take them through what I call the full experience. Like take me through it completely. Like what led up to that decision? What did it feel like when you were in the pantry getting the cupcakes? Like, what did it feel like? But I'm asking like, what did that feel like? What did you feel? Oh, I felt, I don't think I felt anything. It was mindless. And then I'll have them go through the sort of inverse exercise. Like, let's imagine that you went through that whole night and the bag of chips didn't happen and the cupcakes didn't happen. How would that feel? Oh, I'd feel probably really happy with myself and maybe proud or, but now I feel disappointed instead. And so like people will say, when people are asked how something makes them feel, here's what I'm getting at. When we ask our clients, how does that make you feel? They'll say, well, mad, fat, stupid, idiotic. They'll say all these things, but like a lot of these aren't feelings.
Nope, they're emotions.
Right. So
people go to them because emotions are here in our head. So they're safe. They aren't really. But
the feelings then, so that's the part that I think that's the bit of the chasm where the coach is like, I don't know how to get them from their head into their body. Like they cut their head off and I'm in the space between where the head and the body are. I'm trying to like connect them back together somehow. Like that's where the coach kind of feels a little bit handcuffed.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the training and the experience that you do. So like, can you get
I didn't learn that in therapy school.
Oh, interesting.
We didn't learn feelings in therapy school. We didn't learn it at all.
Great. So anybody can learn it. We can all learn it.
Exactly. So I'll tell you a story. My my therapy school colleagues might like disband me for this. But when I was getting my PhD, you know, like the highest degree you can get in school, I read a study where they looked at college students, masters, and PhDs of all different, like there are a gazillion different therapy licensures, right? So they compared people of different, you know, marriage and family therapists, psychologists, social workers, counselors, all, you know, with college students. Mm-hmm. And they all had them do, quote, therapy with, quote, clients. There was no difference based on level of education and based on the, you know, the license. Mm-hmm. Nothing. And I'm getting my PhD and I'm like, crap. I use that word. And I'm like, what am I doing? College students are successful. But what the study determined is that it's the fit between the quote therapist and the quote client. It's the connection. It's the ability to trust, right? Mm-hmm. The knowledge, like as soon as I left my program, I'm like, I think I need to unlearn a whole lot of stuff. Because I think it's going to get in my way of helping people, because I was up in my head and something I just intuitively knew that wasn't where the change was really going to happen. Yeah. And I love insight. I love insight more than anybody in the world. And I used it for most of my life. But now I'm like, yeah, that's using the same thinking. Mm-hmm. It's getting into our body, but listen to the messages we hear when we're little. Shh, be quiet. It's not, you're bothering people. Or eat. It's dinner time. You better be hungry. It's dinner time. Or you can't be hungry. You just ate. Or right. I don't care if you're not tired. It's bedtime. Or I don't care if you're tired. It's time to get up. So these are all great because they keep us in line and make life a little easier for everybody. And at the same time, they also teach us to pay attention to what other people say and thinking and just ignore our body. So we're talking a lifetime of suppression that we as coaches and therapists are trying to restore. So it's simple things like clap your hands, put your hands on your lap, and just really pay attention to what, just start the neural pathways, myelinate the neural pathways to start paying attention to their body. Mm-hmm. And what's really interesting, and it's evolutionarily, it makes sense. We can feel the negative feelings, the discomfort, the pain. Mm-hmm. But if they're happy and you say, okay, so where's that in your body? They're like, I don't know, I'm just thinking it. Right. So we are really not trained to feel, but the positive ones there too. So when they're not feeling negative, I say, what are you feeling? And they're like, nothing. I'm like, yeah. That's actually not true because there are more neurons in your body than your brain. So let's just be curious. If you were to imagine what calmness or happiness or quiet would feel like, what would you, so have them use their imagination, and it will literally start to rewire and myelinate those neural pathways so they will be able to feel their physical feelings. And one of the things I say is your physical feelings, not your emotions, your physical. Like, do you feel, and then I offer them things. Do you feel quiet? Do you feel still? Do you feel kind of angsty? A lot of people feel like tingles. Mm-hmm. They feel a lot of tingles when they start to pay attention. So I offer them different things, and then they imagine it, and then they don't know it, but they're already building them. And then it's just practice.
Wow. Fascinating. Yeah. I mean, I as a coach, I'm sure Erin can relate to this too. That the more I try to get clients to actually answer questions about how they actually feel about themselves. One of my other favorite questions is that really true?
Oh, mine too. I love that.
Is that really true? And they are kind of like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
You know,
is that
the really
Byron
true?
Katie thing? Is that the Byron Katie thing? Is it true? Is it really true?
Maybe, but that came from like back when I was in finance. The company that I worked for had a psychotherapist, hypnotherapist on staff, and he did a lot of training for advisors on how to communicate and build trust with clients. So I was trained in some of this stuff. I'm by no means excellent at it, but there's a lot of fear along with investing when it comes to money.
Okay, I'm just going to stop here. Why did you just say you're by no means excellent at it?
Oh,
That's a good question, because I feel
Is
like,
that really true?
oh, you got me. I don't know. Maybe I need to explore that. So this is where, is that really true? What do you mean? Let's explore that. Why is it that you say that? And then if I can get them to following that pathway and almost helping them, especially when it comes to fear and especially when it comes to trying something new, it's, trying to imagine. Here's the thing, trying to imagine what failure might actually feel like and be like, and then how likely is that really relative to what, let's get back to kind of what's more likely with just a little bit of effort. Right.
Yep.
And then folks tend to seem to kind of calm down a little bit. I can tell by their posture and kind of how they're sitting and their facial expression that they're feeling a little bit better. But so that's really kind of one of my favorite questions. Is that really true? How do you know?
Yeah.
What's the evidence that that is true?
Right.
And what evidence would need to be around for you to realize it's not true?
Mhm.
Okay. How can we go find that evidence? How can we create that evidence? What do we need to do to, and that seems to work for a lot of people.
So what you're doing is you're tapping into the retriculator activating system.
Oh, that sounds fancy.
The RAS
Retriculator.
for, those in the know, the RAS. I got this, actually it's everywhere, but I first really heard about this from Dana Wilde, who I love. She wrote a great book, Train Your Brain, Dana Wilde, W-I-L-D-E. And she was the first person that I saw mantras and I went, those could actually work, instead of making me feel even worse, because I'm a perfectionist now, will never live up to this mantra, right? So the retriculator activating system is that part of our brain that is searching for evidence of what we believe, right? So if I believe I have no self-control, all I will do is search for the evidence. It's like the blinders we have on. We will only see the self-control. We won't remember those times where we didn't eat everything at night, or we did have 6 cookies and then stopped, because they aren't part of our belief system, so they don't count, right? So what you're doing is, when you're saying like, let's look at the evidence, let's look at the other evidence, you're literally reprogramming the retriculator activating system. And that's why mantras, when they are structured correctly, they can do a lot of damage, just making us feel bad. But when they're structured correctly for our psyche where it is, they can literally change our unconscious belief system, because we start looking for, oh, and there was another time where I stopped after a while. There was another time where I sat and I didn't have any cookie. I mean, we'll start to know, and all day I didn't eat it. It's at night, right?
Right.
So, but we forget about all day.
Right.
We fail once, all day is gone.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh my gosh.
Right? So you think about, okay, out of the amount of the day, how much didn't you eat constantly? Well, most of it. Right. Isn't that interesting that you aren't paying attention to that?
Yeah.
You're only paying attention to the negative. And I'm going totally brain geeky today, but our neural pathways for our brain, positive is like Teflon and negative is like Velcro. Like if you get all these compliments and you get one like negative thing, what do you focus on?
Oh yeah, the negative for sure.
Always the negative, always. And that evolutionarily, it makes sense, because what's going to be more important? The mushrooms that kill you, or where the strawberries bloom in the spring, and where they're more flavorful? No, you're going to notice your brain needs to pay attention to that, what will kill me. So that is, our brains are wired to have that negative just stick like Velcro. So our job with the mantras, and then let's look for the other evidence, and is to like, it's like we're forcing the positive, because that's not natural. So every time we do it, every time we look for disconfirming evidence for our beliefs, we're creating those neural pathways. We're making them a little stickier. So it's easier to choose them in the future. But that's conscious effort. The negative just happens.
Right. And I like that you're using evolution as an anchor, because that we just like talking about evolution around here.
Right.
Because that makes a ton of sense. Like from an evolution standpoint, like it goes back to this whole protection thing. You know, the need to protect the body, keep the body safe. And so having a hyper awareness of the bad things is really important. So
Yes.
it doesn't, it's like from an evolutionary standpoint, then it seems like really impossible to kind of like influence that system to make the positive stuff sticky. You know what I mean? Like it seems contrary to how we're kind of evolutionarily designed. But you're saying
it is.
Yeah.
It is. And that's back to the gift. That's the beauty of being a perfectionist. I'm like, yeah, it is really hard, but we can do it. Right? I'm going to figure out a way to make this happen and to make it easy for people to do it. So that's the beauty of the perfectionist, right? Because it is work, and it is like, I don't know, frankly, how they measure this, but I've read that we have some like between 70 and 90,000 thoughts a day, over half of them negative, over half of them repetitive, right? The same thoughts. We really don't think as many new thoughts. They're mostly, we just keep reifying the same old beliefs, right? That's very true. And we're kind of going up an uphill battle. But if we can even influence just a small portion of those 70 to 90,000 thoughts a day, think of the impact. If you could influence even 10%, even 5% of your thoughts, how many thoughts is that? A lot. I don't have a calculator and I can't do math and talk at the same time. It's a lot. And every moment where we feel better is a moment we feel better. Right? So, and they add up. Like someone I work with says, moments count, seconds count. You be in the positive. That's why I do a gratitude practice every morning and every night, because one, it just feels good to feel gratitude. And I literally feel it versus think, because I would critique my list.
Yes, ditto.
Right? I'm like such a perfectionist. So I just decided I'm just going to feel what it feels like in my body. And for me, it's like my heart expands and it has this like pulsing outward. It feels awesome. Yeah. And what I noticed after about 2 weeks of when I first started the practice is spontaneously, I would just be grateful for something. I'm like,
that was my experience too.
Exactly right.
I'd be driving around like being grateful that somebody used their turn signal. Like, thank you.
Right?
Instead of pissed off.
I appreciate you.
Because you're myelinating the pathways again and again and again until your brain's like, got it. This seems to be important to you. Your retriculator activating system kicks in and it's like, do you see that turn signal? They used it. Isn't that awesome? So you're brain hacking your retriculator activating system with gratitude.
Okay. Here's the annoying part. So
way to bring us down, Erin.
Doing shadow work now. Okay, because when I was doing my gratitude practice religiously, same thing. I started off like, man, this is dumb. I'm not good at this. Like I keep being grateful for my cats. Like how many times am I make it into or my bed? Anyway, then it got to the point where I was like, whoa, I just am experiencing this, and my physical feeling was the same as yours. It was that radiating like something. And to your point, it's like it had been a long time, I think, since I had felt a positive feeling in my body. I for sure know what it feels like to be disappointed and embarrassed and annoyed, but it'd been a long time since I had a good feeling in my body. So it felt so good. It felt so good in my body, in my brain, loved it, and then I stopped doing it.
Right.
Why? Okay. Why do we stop doing things that feel good?
Brene Brown addresses this. I think it was in her Netflix special. I can't remember because I like read everything and I see her. I love it. I'm a Brene Brown devotee. But she said, okay, so she was, it was in her Netflix special. So she was talking to the audience and she said, everybody who has kids, raise their hand. So like, 3/4 of the audience raised their hand. She said, okay, so how many of you had this experience? You're sitting in the room, your little angel is asleep, looking absolutely adorable. And you're just so filled with love for this little being. You can't even like fathom how much love is, like so much love. And then she said, your thoughts go to, what if the kid dies? What if what if they get sick? What if there's a car accident, right? Our brain goes to what if, right? Because those feelings, those positive feelings are so friggin' powerful that they scare us. So we stop it. and we get in control again, which is one of the reasons, culture, or not cultures, but regimes, or whatever you want to call them, the people who like to be in power say, you can't dance, you can't sing, no playing, like no fun, right? Because when we're fun, when we're playing,
the guard is down.
Yes, and we are us. This is where freedom is, right? There's so much freedom to feeling absolute love. It's just like, it's an ungovernable force. And when you want control, you want to govern. You don't want ungovernable, right? So another reason we're like, just pay attention to your head, be up here with all these negative thoughts, not your body, which will actually tell you what is going on. It will tell you what is true. Your body doesn't lie. Like I said before, our mind tells us stories, our body tells us what's true. So we're trained to be scared of the power of that positive, beautiful love, just ungovernable feeling. Like there's somehow deep in our psyche that feels like, all hell's going to break loose and I'm going to become hedonistic and I will get nothing done if I enjoy myself.
Right.
Like that's never true.
No.
Like I'll tell you one more story. When I was in grad school, I had ADHD, unmedicated, and depression. And so my therapist sent me to a psychiatrist and he said, what do you do for fun? And I said, what? He said, what do you do for fun? And I'm like, I'm in grad school. Like it was just, I just was puzzled by the question. I'm in grad school. I don't have fun. I work and then I sleep and then I work. And then I said, that's what I do. And he said, okay. So he said, one, no wonder you're depressed. But two, he said, I want you to do a little bit of fun. And I said, no, I can't. And he's like, really? Why? And I said, because if I have fun, I will never work again. That was my belief system. If I allow myself to have fun, I'll just become hedonistic and no longer have any work drive at all.
Oh
like gosh. This was my belief. This was my retriculator activating system.
Yeah, I think I have the same one.
I had it for a while, for sure.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Our work ethic is absolutely. So I joined a soccer team and I even went out for beers with the team after games. And what do you know? I got my PhD. Like, go figure. So we have this belief that if we let loose of any control, we will just break out, right? Which is what people who eat a lot at night, that's what their retriculator activating system. Now I've eaten this. What's the point? I've had one. Now it's done, right?
Might as well have 12.
Yeah, so that's the belief behind it versus all the times they didn't do that. So if we can do these little things, we can prove to ourselves, wow, I can do that and I'm still okay. And I can still have a work ethic and I can still eat good food for me. And I can, right?
We see this a lot in the weight loss space of, I have had a couple of clients that they were almost afraid to really let the weight go. That somehow, even though they were miserable, holding onto that weight was protecting them from something. Boy, that was a tough nut to crack.
Right.
And they're still really working on it. But it was an aha moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really had to realize, okay, so there's something else going. Like I had to refer them to a therapist. This was beyond me, right? But it was the aha moment of
unconscious. Yeah.
Yes, you're holding on to this weight for another reason. There's something psychologically, they were definitely fearful of letting it go. And what is it protecting you from, right? Because we've talked about what life really feels like if they lose the weight and all these other things, but still they were almost fearful to have that because they've been so unhappy for so long. They didn't know what it was really going to be like to feel that way. At least they know, at least I know how I feel here. This is known to me as much as it sucks, right? I don't really know how I'm really going to feel when this changes.
There was one of your Laura Robinson, turn down fear, turn up intuition. She quoted, I think it was her. Somebody quoted Kyle Cease. I love Kyle Cease. And I saw him speak and he said, the ego will choose known misery over unknown happiness every time.
Yeah.
Which is what your clients are doing. I know this. I know I'm going to be safe. The ego just wants us to be safe. And the only way it can know we're safe is if we've already experienced it before.
Right. Which I think is also the argument for why, from a coaching perspective, small steps in many cases are better, rather than having to take these huge steps, right? Towards wellness, one step at a time, because you can layer that. And the next thing you know, you finally get to the other side.
Right.
There was no big dramatic feeling. It was all little things along the way.
Very small. And I have a theory about that. And I'm with you guys. I do very, very small steps because, the ego will choose known misery. If we make a big step, our ego, our stories, our known patterns will say, that's too big. What's going to happen? That's too big of a change. I can't keep you safe with that. We hear all these, you can't do it. You should have done it before. It's not going to work. Those stories to stop us. But if we make these small ones, the ego's like, well, that's not a big deal. That's not going to change anything. Go ahead. So we're hacking our ego with these small ones. And then all of a sudden, like your gratitude practice, all of a sudden it's like, they're using their turn signal. Yay. So we go underneath. We're like stealth changing. So the ego doesn't see it coming until it's too late. We've got too many new habits, new neural pathways. And then the ego, then it's known. And it's like, oh, this is okay. We've been doing this for weeks. It's okay.
There's so many, I just love talking about this kind of stuff because
I know, me too.
Like in the weight loss space, one of my little sort of tongue-in-cheek kind of catchphrases is, want to lose weight really slowly? I'm your gal. because I find like this fast weight loss, like 30 days to a body you love programs, it's like it's too fast. Our brains can't catch up with what's happening in our body. So we have to kind of, to your point, like tactically kind of sneak around it and like, surprise, a year later you're lost 2 pound sizes. We didn't break any world records, but it happened, and still going. But unfortunately, health consumers don't understand that yet. And I don't know how we bridge that. I guess that's what coaches do. I guess that's our job, is to help bridge that gap, and therapists like yourself. But like, to me, it's just, there's so much logic in this. If we ever were to stop and think about our evolution and our brains and all the protective mechanisms inherent in us, gosh, it makes a lot of sense that we're self-protective. It makes a lot of sense that we're going to go to what's comfortable, go to what we know. And I give my clients permission to be uncomfortable with change. Change is uncomfortable. It's biologically uncomfortable.
Right.
You're not broken for not liking it. That's how you're wired. But it's just, we're up against a big old diet culture that's a scourge, a behemoth that has taught people that this needs to be fast, dramatic, and that's kind of what
non-binding.
Yeah.
It's like, you'll change slowly, but it'll stick.
Yeah.
Which do you want 10 years from now?
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know if people know, right?
I don't think that,
instant gratification culture too. And I just think it comes down to folks are really disconnected from their biology and a little bit. And so, there's a rabbit hole and a half, but
we are disconnected.
That's an opportunity as coaches. And that's really why I think health coaching is so interesting, because we're not just dispensing meal plans and workout programs. Like, we're getting into people's patterns, habits, limiting beliefs, their brain waves, their evolution, their biology. In a manner of speaking, we're chipping away at this stuff, which is super fun. And I love
it's the only way it works. It's the only way it sticks.
What brain waves are working now? Like, I'm 49 now.
Now we're mostly in beta, which is problem solving, but it also sees problems, right? What we want is more alpha waves. Alpha waves, when alpha waves are going, it's like connects all of our brain. More of our brain is on board when we've got alpha waves. So as an ADHD person, I listen to alpha wave music when I need to focus. What?
I was going to ask you about binaural beats. That was a little sort of thought I had rolling in the back of my head.
Absolutely. It gets more of our brain on board, because beta, our brains aren't meant to be in beta all the time, but because we're in fight or flight, our brains are just like, beta, I got to fight. Where's the problem? Which, makes us anxious most of the time. Alpha waves, we're like, it's good. I can focus. Next thing. We're not trying to solve all the problems. We're like, what's here now? It's more the flow state.
Oh, nice.
Right.
flow state.
So your book, does it go into all this stuff, right? Everything is perfect, just not me.
It doesn't. It goes into a lot of stuff. I got it here.
Yeah.
It's just a lot. It's the tools I most consistently give my therapy clients. So
Awesome.
what we talked about, some of it, but we talked about way different stuff too that was in it. But it gives very simple, super simple tips on how we can be more compassionate with ourselves. One, by understanding how our brain works, so we can go, oh, I'm not broken. I'm human, right? I'm human. And then different ways, I talk about the feelings model and just different ways to think. So we can slowly be kinder to ourselves by seeing who we are. And then a little bit by little bit, what do I want? Like, is this the hardest question you ever ask? Like when I say to my clients, what do you want right now? And they're like, what do I want? What do I want? And that's the hardest question for me. I'm like, what do I want? Oh God, that's a great question. It's a hard question, right? Because we're not taught to think about that. We're taught to know what we should do. There's all those external rules, which we have brought in and made our internal rules. Like I had a client the other week who said it, like I say this in like 50 words. And she said, there's another rule that isn't there. So short and says, there's another rule that isn't there.
I love it.
Yeah, right. We've got all of them. And so we see, oh, there's another rule. Well, what do I want? What is it that what rule do I want to make? That here's the secret. When we follow our bodies, there are no rules. There's just what's right now. And we do that.
Yeah.
That may change half an hour from now.
Yep.
But right now, we respond appropriately to the situation right now. That's our freedom. That's when we have less stress. That's when we are more us.
This is speaking my language again, and I want to be respectful of your time, but I literally could just talk to you about this for probably.
Right, I know.
Because I had a coaching call before this podcast recording, and the client was apologizing because she screwed up because she was so hungry this week. It was something relating to who knows what. So for some reason, her body queued up more hunger this week than she had been getting used to, and she'd been taught by a diet culture that hunger is bad. It's meant to be micromanaged. But I've been trying to teach, I kind of try to connect my clients to their body signals and like, hey, you're in charge of the inputs. Your job is to listen to what the body's asking for and then just provide the inputs. And it's pretty cool little symbiotic relationship we're meant to have here. It's not really supposed to be this micromanagement kind of paradigm. Right. So she was apologizing for being more hungry. And I was like, your body's just asking for more fuel for some reason that it knows. It knows why. So your role, as I've said before, is to answer the body's requests. And don't worry, you're not a bad person for being hungry. And maybe next week you'll be less hungry. And that's the undulations of the body that we can expect. However, I am guilty of not being able to do that with my own mind, I guess. Like 100% connected down here. I'm whatever my body asks for, it gets. But I don't know what I want. When you ask that question, what do you want? I was like, I don't know.
I know. Don't ask me that.
Wow. I mean, gosh, this is the kind of deep work that we're just not doing on ourselves. I think generally, I mean, any human walking around in a modern culture probably needs to ask themselves these questions and start chipping away at this stuff, I think. So I'm really grateful for the work that you do.
Yeah. Thank you. And not everybody has the courage. I mean, it takes great courage to be with the stuff we deal with. Like, you talked about shadow earlier. It takes great courage to be with our shadow. It takes great courage to just even feel our feelings.
Yeah.
Right. And not everybody wants that. That's fine.
Right.
Is it?
It's okay. And
it's go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's okay to not be able to put into words sometimes too, I think. That's where I think I struggle, is not knowing how to really articulate it in a way that makes sense to anybody, yet somehow wordlessly, it might kind of make sense to me,
Yeah.
But I think all this really just comes back to feelings. Like we've all had clients from a health coaching world that want to lose weight and they pick this magic number, or I want to get back into my size 6 jeans or my size 4 jeans or whatever. And it's, well, why is that? Well, because then I will be thinner. Okay. Well, why do you want to be thinner?
Right.
Well, because then at the end of the day, it's, well, then I'll feel more comfortable in my body. Will you really? Let's talk a little bit about more of that, and it's kind of getting to, but at the end of the day, I finally had a client that really got deep with me in this conversation. And what it really came down to is she wanted to get back to that, how she felt at that time when she was in those jeans, what her life was like. It was carefree. She didn't have any of this stress. She was young, and it was, that's what we're after. Okay. So, but you're not 22 and you have 4 children. So life is a little different, but we can try to recreate that feeling another way. Let's brainstorm that. But it took like, oh my God, peeling, like we were down to the middle of the onion, before we really got to that aha moment. It was, she liked herself. Yes. And she liked the way she felt then. When she was in those jeans, she felt young back then. She felt sexy. She had felt like her world was ahead of her. And now it's 20 years later and she's exhausted and her body's not the same that it used to be. And all she ever does is worry. And her life is about these 4 little parasites, and them first instead of her. And so we really had to spend a lot of time forcing her to start putting herself first a little bit. Like that was the first baby step. Wasn't the 20 pounds. It was finding time for her. That, and then over time, she started to kind of give herself permission to understand the time commitment that living a healthy lifestyle was going to take, and that was okay. It was okay if it means you have to find someone to carpool to get the kids to soccer practice instead of you, right? Yeah. The kind of the give and take. But gosh, the emotions and really being honest about all that. And what's interesting is she never really looked at it that way. She kind of thought to a certain degree guiltily that, she wanted to lose the weight, but it was more of a vanity thing. It really wasn't.
It wasn't, right?
Yeah. It really wasn't. Fascinating. Yeah.
So that's the power of tapping into our wants. Our wants are so powerful. It's amazing. But, to your point earlier, Erin, not everybody's ready for that power. Bless the people who are, man, because they're like, it's a lot of work to get there, but not everybody is ready or even wants it.
Right. So that's something to consider, health coaches. Right. Not everybody's going to let you go there or going to be willing to go there with you.
Just, do you think that people get scared about the great unknown that is like pure unadulterated pleasure and joy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Isn't that wacky?
Yeah.
Like the longer I live, I'm like, we're wacky. The beliefs we have and the rules we set up are just crazy making. They're crazy. Like you shouldn't have fun. You should take care of everybody else before you. You should work before you play. Like I do more, like since the pandemic, I started reading for an hour a day of just sometimes, self-help stuff and sometimes racism stuff. And which is, that's really uplifting, but it's just like expanding my world. So I just get with a cup of warm water and then a cup of coffee and I'm just having the best time because I love reading. My brain is exploding with ideas because I'm taking an hour of not quote, air quotes, doing anything. Right. And then I'm unproductive. But my brain is like, awesome, input, output. But we don't learn that. Right? So a lot of our life, I think, when we're ready, is unlearning almost everything we learned.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Oh my gosh. We could literally talk for...
It's fun.
Yeah. So we're just going to have you back because awesome. I'm sure there's so much more that we can continue, but I want to make sure people know where to find you and where to find your book and where they might be able to reach out to you if they have other questions.
Awesome. Great. So my website is everydaylove.me.
I love that. And
I know, isn't that great? I was like, I thought of that and went, oh my God. That was one of those download kind of perfect. So everydaylove.me. And I send out monthly or bi-monthly love notes, which is perspectives and stress reduction tools. So they can sign up for that. The book, Everything is Perfect, Just Not Me, you can find on Amazon. I'm a self-published,
Wonderful.
offer. It's very exciting. So, and it's also on my website, the click to get there. So that's how they find me.
Awesome. Awesome.
Exciting.
Thank you
Awesome.
so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you so much. I had a delightful time talking with both of you.
Oh, we did too. And I learned a lot. I know Erin learned a lot, and I know we'll no doubt be bugging you to come back for more. So thank you.
Yay!
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This podcast was brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute. To learn more about how to become a successful health coach, get in touch with us by visiting primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or if you're already a successful health coach, practitioner, influencer, or thought leader with a thriving business and an interesting story, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us at hello@primalhealthcoach.com and let us know why we need to interview you for Health Coach Radio. Thanks for listening.
Well, if you've been listening at Health Coach Radio, you'll know that we're all about raising the voices of practicing health, fitness, and nutrition coaches, but most importantly, helping to further legitimize this exploding industry. Erin and I have disclosed often that we're on the faculty of the Primal Health Coach Institute, founded by none other than the health and wellness legend Mark Sisson. And we've interviewed dozens of guests from just about every different health coaching program you can think of, and who practice in just about any conceivable way you can think of. But our allegiance is to the health coaching industry in its totality, first and foremost. It's our desire to continuously and unapologetically lift and promote this industry that nudged us to create this podcast for you in the first place. It's this same yearning that encouraged us to take the educational offering at our health coaching school to the next level. We are so proud to offer the Primal Health Coach Level 2 certification course, which, when combined with our primary course, the Primal Health Coach certification course, not only satisfies the educational requirements to sit for the board exam, but is specifically designed to teach advanced coaching mastery. You will work closely with a small class of peers through this 12-week, very intensive, live online classroom experience to learn how to execute a coaching relationship that is truly transformational. You'll learn and practice how to ask powerful questions, what it means to hold space for your clients, but most importantly, how to actually do it. You'll learn about the craft of motivational interviewing and the nuances of habit change, goal setting, and accountability, and how to nurture your client's own inner knowing, their intuition, and their own self-efficacy, so that they will graduate from your care a truly transformed person. You want a big, successful, powerful coaching practice. And maybe you're devouring our episodes looking for the silver bullet that's going to launch your business into the upper echelons. We've said it a million times and we'll say it again. Your coaching skills are what will make or break you and set you apart for success in this field. So if you're looking to level up your coaching skills, and maybe dial up your credential and become a board-eligible health coach, look no further. You can learn more about PHCI's Level 2 program at primalhealthcoach.com/level 2. But if you would value talking to a real person about your path to being a masterful coach and perhaps a board-certified coach, book some time with me personally. You can access my calendar at primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or just call me. You can reach me at 844-307-7662. Thank you for listening to Health Coach Radio, and I hope I get to talk to you soon.